No mai hoki mai, welcome back, or no mai hara mai if it's your first time here. I'm not gonna lie, this is the second time I'm recording this because my first recording's audio was just poop. So now I'm trying it again and I'm seeing if it works, but that's what happens, right? Messy action in this life, in this podcast, in this literally everything. Okay, messy action trumps everything. Anyways, that's just a quick interjection before I jump into the conversation today. So I had a vision and I decided that I wanted to do like a 6-part series of my mum life journey. And I know that my mum life journey can and will come out in many more episodes moving forward, but I really wanted to ground in that for the rest of 2025, at least for the rest of this year. And yeah, share more about my story, share more about what it was like to become a teen mum, what it was like to finish school as a mum and move through life, what it was like raising kids on my own, and quite literally just all of it, right? Across the board. And as you can see in the title, I became a mum at 15. Okay. And that's what we're diving into today because life wasn't easy. Life was actually extremely hard. Life was quite chaotic even before I became a mum. So that's where we're going to start today. That's the conversation where we're going to start. So, what was my life like before getting pregnant at 15? If you haven't listened to my earlier podcasts, I definitely want to put the wheel out for you to go and listen or watch those depending where you are. As I dive in a little bit deeper, like my whakapapa, who I come from, how I show up, who I am, X, Y, Z. But if we're going to talk specific in this podcast about life before I was hapu at 15, it doesn't really start off the greatest, to be quite honest. Life before becoming a mum at 15 was already hard and really turbulent and chaotic, and I had already lived a life before I even got hapu, right? I grew up in addictions. I grew up with mental health challenges myself within my whānau and friends and community that I was in. I grew up in a lot of hardships before I even became a mum. So I already grew up really fast, and I really want to talk more though around when I was the age 8. When I was 8, so many things were happening, right? When I was 8, I met my brother for the first time, and I didn't even know I had a brother, and he was 21. I met my nan. So my mum and my nan, they just didn't have a very good relationship at all. So I met my nan for the first time when I was 8. By the time I was 8, I had already gone through so much adversity. I had already been abused so much. I had already just gone through so much. I was already looking after myself by that age as well. We were in and out of women's refuges, in and out of homes. I went to so many different schools. Nonetheless, by age 8, I had, like I said earlier, already lived a life. Age 8 was also the year my drinking addiction started. Okay, I started drinking frequently by age 8. At age 8, I also tried to unalive myself. And at the time, one of my perpetrators or one of the people who abused me as a child was also the one who cut me down, which was triggering in itself and scary. And I just had so much fear at age 8. By age 8, I had already gone through so much adversity, so much hurt, so much hara that no wonder I started drinking at such a young age, right? Now, age 10 was also quite a turbulent age for me. At age 10, I was already drinking all the time. At age 10, I started smoking cigarettes and marijuana. At age 10, we had that was age 11, but we had house fires. But by these young ages, I had already gone through so much. My life was already laid out for me. The path that I was walking on was already laid out for me based on my whakapapa, I guess, statistically. Yes, all of that was already laid out for me before I was even born. Let's be honest, before I was even born, all of that was laid out for me. And then I found out I was happy when I was 15. And I'm not going to lie when I tell you that that was such a blessing. And while I don't recommend getting pregnant as a teenager, definitely don't recommend it. That shit's hard. Actually, no matter how old you are, but just the way my life was going and the trajectory of my life at the time, having a baby at 15 or 16 really showed me some perspective. Really showed me that I didn't want my baby at the time to grow up in a life that I grew up in. So he was definitely a blessing. I'll talk more about that soon, but I want to talk about how I found out I was pregnant, or when I found out I was pregnant, and what happened when I found out I was pregnant. Because, I was going through NCA level 1 exams. I remember finding out I was pregnant during NCA level 1 exams. And I went down to the Waldegrave Women's Clinic here in Palmerston North. If you don't know them, they give out free pregnancy tests, and they actually have a whole bunch of other services down there that total and support women. But anyways, I went down there with my old neighbor Carleen because I just knew something was off. I knew my body very well, even at that age, and I just knew something was off. So my neighbor suggested we go and get a pregnancy test done. So that's what we did. And then, if you know what a pregnancy test looks like, it came up with 2 lines, and I just remember shitting bricks. I just remember feeling numb. I just remember not knowing what to do next. I remember finding out that I was happy, with my neighbor Carly, and I just didn't know what to do. But honestly, who does when you find out you're pregnant, right? Let alone when you're a teenager. And I remember crying, and I remember freaking out, and I remember being so scared to tell my mum, but I was more scared to tell my dad because I didn't want to let him down. I didn't want to disappoint him. And then I also had to tell my baby's dad. And so much was going through my mind, especially as a 15-year-old. So yes, I was a druggie, alcoholic, and all of that by that time. But I was also still going to school. Now, I still really love school. So I was also worried about telling my teachers at the time. Very, very worried to tell my teachers at the time. Scared of judgment, scared of being abandoned, scared of all of those things because I was only 15. But anyways, I ended up telling my mum, and the first thing she said to me was, Gail, if you were pregnant, I'll kick you up the ass right now. And so, whoosh, ripped the band-aid off. My mum was told. At the time, my mum was also an active addiction. Again, if you haven't heard my earlier podcast, please go back and check it out. But anyways, told my mum. I told baby's dad at the time, and again, we were so young, and he freaked out. And our relationship was quite turbulent as well. It was quite toxic. We grew up in these environments and these lives, so this is what was normal for us anyway. We were obviously only doing what we were shown and taught as we grew up. Neither here or there, and maybe another conversation for another time, but back to it. And then there was my dad. And I was so scared to tell my dad, but I was coming up to the holidays anyway, and I used to just go up to Auckland and visit my dad every single holiday. So I went up to Auckland, and my best friend and boyfriend at the time followed me up to Auckland to tell him. So I didn't even get to tell my dad that I was hapu, and I was furious. But on the flip, I was also kind of relieved that I wasn't the one to do that. He told him. But again, at the time, furious, but also relieved at the same time. And I just remember seeing my dad's expression, and he obviously cried. He wasn't angry though. He was sad, and he was super supportive. Okay. I still have photos from that day of 15-year-old me and my dad, and we were on the deck at his house. Like, I still have a selfie that I took of us, and I'm very grateful that I took those photos because I didn't take many photos and videos of my dad because he's passed away now. So obviously I'm thinking about that in hindsight. I wish I took more photos. If you still have your parents around, please take more photos of them. So I take heaps of my mum now. But anyways, sidetracking. My dad, super supportive, Sad, yes, of course, and was always there for me. But again, I was so scared to let him down, to, maybe have him disown me and all of those things. But it was quite the opposite. He was supportive and he was super proud of me. And he told me that all the time. And my aunties and uncles remind me all the time as well. They always say, your dad will be so proud of you right now. But anyways, rip the band-aid off. Dad knew. And then it was the school. And I was so scared to tell my school as well. I didn't know how they were going to take it. I remember when I went to the teen parent, I just heard so many horror stories post them. And I'm so grateful for the college that I went to. I told one of my then favorite teachers, I know we shouldn't have favorites or whatever, but he was the one that I felt most comfortable to tell first. And I told him. And he was just like, yeah, oh, okay, girl, sweet. We're going to navigate this together. If you need help, to let any of the other teachers know, like, I got you and all the things. But it was okay. And I ended up telling my deans, and they were super supportive. The principal at the time they actually were the ones who took me down to the teen parent unit to check it out, to see if I liked it. But they were also just as much like, hey, we'd love it if you come back to our school as well. I went to Awatapi College, by the way, in Palmerston. Loved it. It was my favorite high school. But anyways, they were like, hey, you can also come back after you have baby. Would love to have you back. But I'm with the teen parent unit because they had a van that could pick us up every single day. They had a daycare that was attached to it, and they fed us. So I was like, sold. So I went to the teen parent unit. But what I was saying earlier was, when I got to meet the mums there, I was hearing horror stories of how they were treated when they were telling their schools that they were hapu. And honestly, I just sat in so much gratitude because that was not the experience that I had. And I'm truly grateful for, a lot of my schools that I've been to. They've been quite pillars of my life as I was growing up. Kind of my safe space, I wouldn't say home, but it was a safe space. Schools were a safe space for me. So yeah, I was very grateful for that. So that's what it was like, telling everybody, not everybody, but that's what it was like telling some of those people in my world that I was hapu, and sitting in so much gratitude because there was actually so much support. However, on the flip, there was actually also so much discrimination, because I was a young teen mum. Not only that, I was a young Maori Indigenous teenage mum. Okay, there are still events and comments that people made and all of those that still etched into my brain to this day. And I'm going to talk about a couple of them. I remember one time I went to a place that financially supports you, if you know, here in New Zealand. And I was hapu with my second at this time, and I was 17, and I was looking for rentals so that I could move the hell out of my mum's house, right? So I could get out of there and start raising my babies outside of the environment that raised me. And I actually did get accepted for a couple of rentals. Okay, a couple of rentals were very keen to support me and help me into a home so that I could raise my children. However, when I went into this place that financially supports us here in New Zealand, I was met with a lot of judgment and discrimination. Now, I am super glad that I took somebody in with me for support, which was my mum's key worker at the time. So my mum's in the mental health system, okay, and she had a key worker at the time. And I'm so glad that I took her. Janelle, bless her. Thank you so much for supporting me and my mum at that time. Because the discrimination that I faced that day terrified the shit out of me and terrified me more in the system. I had a little faith in the system already, but then this happened. I took a tenancy agreement in that they were offering me the house, okay? 3-bedroom house. Of course, I was 17, so I wasn't technically old enough to rent the house, but I did have a guarantor because I wasn't too far off being 18 anyway. Took those in. The lady then asked me, okay, but told me, okay, but if we help you with a bond, but it means we're also going to have to help you with things to fill your house up. Like, you're going to have nothing and you're going to expect support from us. Then I responded and I was like, actually, I've got most of that stuff locked down. Like, people have gifted me things and bought us things, and we're pretty much ready to move into a house. And she just looked gobsmacked. And then after that, the way she was speaking implied that maybe the stuff I had received was stolen or I stole it. And honestly, it was horrible. She told me I needed to go get receipts and I needed to prove to her how I received the items that I had ready to go to a house. And I'm not sure how she was expecting me to get these things when 100% of the things that I got were gifted to me. Most of it was secondhand, which I'm still a secondhand gal. Like, I love secondhand things to put into my whare. But she implied that I had stolen these things or received stolen goods and would not grant me a bond so that me and my babies could move into a house. Now, going back to my support lady that I had, that support wahine that I had with me, I'm so grateful because she took that further and she filed a complaint, and we got to go in and speak to another caseworker, which then I was able to get my bond approved and move into our first rental. That was one of the many times that this has happened. Another time was when I was I must have been about 18 or 19 years old. I was in my rental, had my babies, and someone, I still don't know who till this day, rang SIPs on me, or oranga tamariki these days. And they had made an accusation that I was a hard out methamphetamine drug addict. And so SIFs came and investigated me, and obviously it got thrown out the window because no, the fuck I wasn't. But anyways, I wasn't. But I remember how terrified I was for that happening because I had already been doing all the things that I should be doing just to prove that I could be a mum, right? Just to prove or show that I was good enough to be a mum, because I already knew I was a teenage mum. Already knew that. So I had in my pocket or in the back of my mind that I needed to prove and show that I could be this mum, that I could be this person. That's what it felt like I had to do. Forever putting on these masks and, being too scared to ask for help because then that would look like weakness, and then I might lose my kids because I'm asking for help, right? I always had to have my house clean. I was so scared for it to be untidy, to be messy, to be any of that, because if anyone saw that, again, they might judge me or ring SIFs on me, right? Even when I was illegal to drink, I would go out to events, to certain events, and I would just feel so weird because, like, don't get me wrong, I could have a party in my garage anytime, but if I went out, I would feel so uncomfortable having an alcoholic beverage at the time because I also knew I was a mum. And just all these expectations that, yes, society put on me, but all these expectations that I put on myself, I lived in fear so much. And I was discriminated against. And people were racist to me. But this one time, someone called SIFs and there was that investigation. And I'm so lucky for the supports that I had because I was at the teen parent at the time. I was teen parent unit at the time, whakatipuria. And the teachers there were so gangster and they had my back. They were like, I don't know who you're talking about, but that's definitely not Gail. And I was so grateful because I was going to school consistently. I was doing my work. I was showing up. I was doing things. And even when I wasn't, they knew what was going on. So it was that much easier for them to support me. But that is just like another one of the many times that discrimination or racism or any of that happened to me. Okay, and it happened lots, and it can still happen to this day. I am really grateful for everything that I have gone through, even when it was hard, even when it was challenging, even when life be throwing lemons, because each and every single one of those circumstances or events or experiences has made me the person I am today, right? It has made me the person who I am today. And, I did have to grow up fast. I had already had to grow up fast before I became a mum, but it like rapidly flung me, right? It rapidly flung me into adulthood and parenthood. And I was navigating all these things from an already unstable foundation and learning how to build a foundation that would hold me and my kids. Yeah, it fucking took ages. And even to this day, and I'm like a 30-year-old lady, I'm a 30-year-old woman here, the foundation can still be wobbly, right? But going through all that I did as a young person, going through all that I did as a young parent, has helped me get very comfortable living in the uncomfortable, for lack of better words. Yeah. Going through everything that I did, inclusive of becoming a mum so long, inclusive of my addictions and my trauma and my experiences, has all led me to where I am today, right? I finished school. I ended up going on and doing my social work degree because I just knew that I wanted to help people. I don't know in which way I wanted to help people yet, but I knew that social work was a great foundation for that, right? But I finished that and I graduated with my bachelor's degree in social work. And then I went on to work in a multi non government organization. And actually, it was my placement, and they ended up hiring me like 3 weeks in. And it was in a mental health and addiction space, and I was straight up, honestly, trying to avoid anything mental health and addictions, but the doors kept closing left, right, and center at other places. And I was like, oh, there's obviously a sign because it's all aligning here. They're okay with you being a mum, they're okay with you studying, they're okay that you have another job, and they're really okay with being flexible with your life. And so I went there, and that gave me the opportunity to work with some amazing colleagues. That gave me the opportunity to work in places like Ministry of Justice, so like probation, youth prisons, schools. I helped run programs. I just was able to start working and bring my lived experiences and my tohu together and start working in this space, in this system, and start making changes systematically as someone who has gone through the system, who is now working in the system, and who wants to do things in a different way that truly aligns with our tangata whaiora, right? And truly aligns with our whānau that we work with. That's why I wanted to do it. I low-key also went into social work because I felt like I had to prove myself again. I just wanted to show that I could be better than the social workers that came into my life at some points. But hey aha, regardless of why I went into that realm, the outcomes from it and the learnings from it, and the journey that I was able to be on and the people that I was able to connect with, 10 out of 10, so worth it. And now I'm a certified life coach and NTT practitioner, and I serve in a different way, but nonetheless, I'm serving in a way that aligns, and I'm serving again in a way that brings my personal life and my tohu in together and weave it and serve in different ways, including on this podcast, YouTube. You're listening, watching. I don't know where you're listening or watching, but here, right? I have used every single experience to get to where I am today. I have used the pains that I've gone through, and I have turned it into like purpose, into my passions, into how I show up in the world. And if I could honestly speak to that 15-year-old girl, to 15-year-old me, I would tell her she's doing a fucking great job. I would remind her to keep doing what she's doing. I would remind her to keep being courageous. I would wrap her in so much love and tell her she's gonna make it, right? Yeah, it's gonna be hard. Yeah, there's gonna be challenges. Yes, life is going to be lifing, but you literally make it, girl. Because the life that we have right now, I know that it is just but a dream back then, but it's now our reality. And if you are a mum watching this or listening to this, wherever you are, I would share that exact same advice for you, especially if you're moving through the fears of judgment or chaos, or if you feel stuck or exhausted, I would give you the same advice that I would give to younger me, because you're truly not alone in this. And we can create so much purpose and get so much lessons and learnings from the hardship that comes our way, right? Life happens for us. It doesn't happen to us. And that is a new learning that I have come into in the past 2 to 3 years whilst I've been on this massive personal development journey, right? Life happens for us. It doesn't happen to us. There is always a purpose to these really hard, shitty things that happen in life. And it might not feel like it in the time, and that's okay. We're human, right? We feel these things. And then we look back and we're like, okay, well, what is this teaching me? What am I meant to learn from this? How can I use this shit experience and turn it into something over here that I can now show and lead and teach others, right? Our pains become our roadmap, essentially, right? Because I've been through so much hurt, trauma, might not be the same as someone else's, but because I've been through it over here, now I'm here. And today, when I come across others who go through similar experiences, I'm like, oh my God, I can fucking help you with that. I can literally total call you with that, right? So yes, I'm gonna love and leave and park the conversation right here. I really hope that something in this conversation has sparked something in you. I am so glad I have made this a 6-part series, because I know I could go on and on and on and on. So if you did like today's conversation, please like, follow, subscribe wherever you are so that you can get the next episodes coming out in the future. And yeah, that's it really. Okay, you'll hear from me soon. Ka kite. Bye.